The three key promoters of the new PAPSS Cowrie, the African Export-Import Bank, the Afcfta Secretariat, and the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System totally formally introduced the new sovereign and interoperable African payment ecosystem in Lagos. Now, the new payment system is built for trade and economic growth, and it was showcased to the Nigerian banking, finance, and tech infrastructure industry as PAPSS looks to collaborate, or rather looks for collaborations that will drive the new innovation and that's cheaper, faster, and more inclusive for Africa. Let's take some excerpts from some of the keynote presentations.
We've created this Pan-African payment rail that today has connected about 19 countries, and we're looking forward to expanding this to about 40. Okay, and today has 160 commercial banks that are connected on this platform. And these are 160 of the leading and the best commercial banks across the continent. Now, what we have now done is working with these partners. You know, we're also now enabling fintechs and tech companies across the continent to be able to originate payment in one market and terminate it in the other market. So PAPSS is that financial market infrastructure that allows for the processing of cross-border payments in local currencies, and it's able to do that in no more than 120 seconds. So from the origination of a transaction to the termination of that transaction, it takes a maximum of 120 seconds. And in between, we do all of the AML, the sanction screening, and the fraud management. So you ask yourself, if we are creating this value together, how does it bring and deliver value to each of the stakeholders on our platform? And I think that this is an opportunity for us to tell that story, how we deliver that value. So today, there are banks today who are beginning to see significant improvements in their margins just by leveraging PAPSS for doing their cross-border payments. So when, for example, PAPSS lowers its cost of processing to be as low as 10% of the alternatives that you have in the market, what it means is that banks and other commercial players have more monies to put in their bottom line.
Today's events marks more than the commencement of a forum. It signals the birth of a new era in Africa payments. For too long, cross-border payments within Africa has been very slow, costly, and also dependent on foreign currency and external intermediaries. This has hampered trade, discouraged investment, and placed unnecessary obstacles, before our entrepreneurs and businesses. It runs contrary to the spirit and the aim of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which envisions a truly interconnected and prosperous Africa. The urgency of our discourse today cannot be overstated. Africa loses an estimated $5 billion annually to settlement inefficiencies associated with reliance on non-African currencies. At the same time, intra-Africa trade remains at 18%, one of the lowest regional trade figures globally. That's exactly what this PAPSS is trying to redress today. Since going live, PAPSS has expanded to 16 countries, connected over 150 commercial banks, and enabled settlements in local currency within 120 seconds. I think they deserve an applause for that. These are not just statistics. They are signals that Africa is building solutions rooted in its own realities.
Afcfta Bank is a treaty-based Pan-African institution owned by 54 member countries, anchored on a $45 billion balance sheet and covering the trade risk of more than 300 African banks. We was created for one mission: to enable, expand, and transfer Africa trade. We believe the Africa we want will only be achieved through the Africa we trade. And for Africa to trade confidently, trade must be efficient, interconnected, and digital. Yet African business still face real barriers. Cross-border payments remain slow, expensive, impossible sometimes, and nearly 5 billion is lost every year to third currency routing. SMEs struggle to find trusted partners, affordable finance, and market information. Banks face liquidity pressures, FX pressure, and elevated risk premium.
We are extremely proud to be a promoter of PAPSS. We fully support the vision, the executive team that is implementing this vision, and at any moment, PAPSS can count on us for political support. In our continent, different institutions have different roles. Afcfta, as EVP, has clearly articulated the role of Afcfta. Mike set out the role of PAPSS. The Afcfta Secretariat, our role is to ensure that we implement the rules that create a single market, that enable us as Africans to trade without barriers, to eliminate barriers to intra-Africa trade, and to realize the benefits of a market of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. However, as has been stated, this dream of creating a single market shall remain nothing but a dream if we don't introduce the tools that will enable us to overcome the fragmentation that has existed for many, many decades.